This is SMNI News Channel. Truth that matters.
Good evening and welcome to SMNI. You're watching Business and Politics. I'm your host, Dante Klink. Our guest tonight is a veteran restaurateur, and in a larger context, our topic will focus on entrepreneurship. We'll talk to Romel Nang, who co-founded Buffalo's Wings and Things after honing his skills in Shakey's Pizza, Outback Steakhouse, and Jollibee Food Corporation. He's also a co-founder and director of Resto Coach, which is an advocacy group that aims to inspire hearts, empower minds, and equip business owners and stakeholders in the restaurant industry. Many of them are micro, small, and medium enterprises, or MSMEs. As mentioned before in this program, MSMEs are vital to the Philippine economy. They comprise 99.6% of all registered firms. They also account for 35% of gross value added and employ about 60% of the labor force. We'll ask Mr. Nang, what does it take to succeed in business? And with entrepreneurs looking ahead at 2024 and beyond, what are the opportunities and challenges facing the food industry? Sir Romel Nang, welcome to Business and Politics.
Thank you for having me here, sir.
Now, I'm very curious about your journey. We were talking a lot about your past. Turns out you were a journalism major. I feel like the interview could be going the other way around. Ikaw magtatanong. But tell us how you became interested in the restaurant business. I understand it somehow runs in your family, right?
Yeah, I think the DNA came from my lolo, who was a first-generation migrant from China, sir, in the 50s. So he came to the Philippines with his brothers. I think one of the brothers knew how to work with watches. So he put up a watch shop in Doroteo Jose in Manila.
Okay.
And then the other brother knew how some wood sash work, yung artistry and woodworks. So he put up a woodwork shop in Caloocan. And then my lolo put up a noodle shop in what was known then as General T. De Leon Valenzuela, which is now known as Karuhatan.
Yes.
So from that small noodle shop, I think, no, in beside the road, near the church, it grew into a full-blown restaurant in front of the San Miguel Beer Brewery.
I
Actually,
see.
what was known before as, up to now naman, sir, BBB.
Okay.
That place, Bulacan Beer, Balintawak Beer Brewery, what is actually in Bulacan, Polo, Bulacan. So that's where he put up his restaurant. So literally, we at night, sometimes I sleep at in the local dialect, sir, parang natutulog ako sa pansitan, literally, no? So
Literally na pansitan.
on top of it, because daytime we used to have customers in the second floor, but at nighttime it's a sleeping area for grandchildren and the children of my lolo. So you grew up playing your lolo's restaurant. You met him and you I still had an opportunity to be with him until I was 7 years old.
Okay.
So
do you still remember? Or?
Yeah, I still remember the shop. People making. What made us famous then was our pancit, which was which had fish balls, which are really made from scratch.
Oh, wow.
Which is sir, it's very hard to find right now. No? The recipe from China, my lolo's know-how, and we became a precursor of, the pansitterias now.
Right,
and sir, believe it or not, even in the 70s, inabot ko 70s, 80s, we were already 24 hours. So because I think economically, because the beer brewery had shifts, and then
made sense,
the famous taxi company R&E before EMP.
Okay, yeah,
Taxi was near us, so
I remember that.
we had to serve all those people at night. So from that time, sir, when I took up journalism at the University of the Philippines, I found it necessary to do part-time work. I was a working student, so I think that also rekindled when I started working for Jollibee Foods Corporation, Grand Central Monumento branch in 1992. I think that switched me from my plan of being a journalist to
QSR,
to restaurants. At that time, sir, 1991, 1992, Jollibee was growing. So the QSR industry, the QSR sector, I would say, was at its peak. So it rekindled my interest in the restaurant industry. So after I graduated, I pursued a career with Jollibee as a management trainee. And then, as you mentioned in the intro, I worked for Shakey's as well, Outback Steakhouse, Shakey's, and then went back to, dabbled a little bit. Yun yung first venture ko into entrepreneurship catering.
Right.
And then after that, it failed actually.
Okay.
And then I went back to work for Shakey's and then Outback again.
Right.
And then we founded Buffalo's Wings and Things in 2009.
Wow. And then you started one store, right? And how many restaurants do you have now of Buffalo Wings and Things?
Yeah, it's really truly a blessing. Now, 2009, we started with one store in Ortigas Home Depot. Now it's called Upper Deck.
Upper Deck.
Yeah, Upper Deck, along Julio Vargas. That's where we started. And it was dinner only.
Okay.
Because we used to have day jobs, no? My co-founders and I used to have day jobs.
Okay.
So what we did
was on the side only
on the side,
initially.
Yeah.
But now it's your full-time worker.
Yes, I'm currently the president of the company.
Right.
And going back to your question, from 2009, from one store, we grew up to 55 stores in 2019.
Wow,
but when the pandemic hit, of course, we had to pivot and reposition some of the stores and relocate. So now we're operating 39 stores.
That's quite interesting. But let me take a step back because I'm quite interested in your background because the entrepreneurial, I guess, work just ended with your grandfather for a while. You were telling me that none of his siblings or none of his children went into that business. Your father was a former police officer, right? And I think you were saying that your mom's glad that none of you became police officers. But tell me more about that. And you said it got rekindled when you went to college, had to take a day job. But why did it end? I mean, what interrupted it?
I think there's unfortunately, there's a gap between me going into the restaurant industry and the restaurant continuing its operation, the Noodle House. It was called Delia's restaurant, and a lot of people from the Valenzuela, Marulas area still ask us about it when they see us.
What happened?
It's going to reopen. I think there was a gap because in the late 90s, the restaurant was, the space was not ours. We tried to, I think my lolo tried to purchase it several times, but it was prime property. So in the late 90s, the lease ended, and ironically, who took over was Jollibee. So may gap, sir. I was not yet ready maybe to take on the succession to run
your siblings were not interested also?
No, my siblings, my uncles,
your
my aunts.
brother, you're telling me, was in Saudi Arabia for a long time?
Yeah, he's an OFW along with my sister-in-law for 23 years. They served the royal family of Saudi Arabia, and after 23 years, they decided to go home.
Right.
He's now running a small business, water station, and of course taking care of the apos, and he's a pastor now. He's a Protestant pastor in Marulas and in Santa Maria, Bulacan.
Yeah. No, I'm always very interested in how people get into the business, and I'm interested in also what others can learn from it. And you were telling me earlier that when your grandfather came to the Philippines from China, his skill was to cook, so that's why he got into cooking, right, or to the restaurant business. But you had options, and so you sort of like stumbled back into it, right? Did you ever imagine when you were younger that you would go into business yourself, or did you imagine that you would be instead hosting a TV program or maybe writing columns for a paper? What was your childhood ambitions when you were growing up?
Come to think of it, I really wanted to write.
Okay.
I think it was high school when I really decided to pursue a journalism course. I wanted to write. I wanted to become a columnist eventually.
You were what, politics or business or
I
food?
didn't have any specific.
You just wanted to write.
I just wanted to write.
Yeah.
I knew that I had a passion for writing.
Okay.
Which I think now translated into something of a different medium, but this is still the same.
Talk about the rest of coach.
Yes,
yeah.
But going back to your point, sir, the biggest difficulty looking at it now, looking back at it now rather, is the mindset.
Yeah.
Because nobody.
That's what I'm very curious about. Yeah.
Nobody would give us the mindset of doing business. Because my lolo died in 78, I was only 6, so most probably he would have had the most entrepreneurial mindset. And my mom was, as I told you backstage earlier, that she was also an entrepreneur in her own right, entrepreneur in her own right, doing small buy and sell businesses while tending to the restaurant as this daytime cashier.
Right.
So all of those things put together, you don't realize, because once you finish school, the orientation is to find employment.
Right.
Which I did, with Jollibee Foods.
Sure.
And, the pay was good, better than other industries. I think that was one of the reasons why I went into restaurant as well, knowing that it's going to be a more difficult path if I took on journalism.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you from being a service crew to becoming a manager and then eventually becoming of a higher position, the comfort zone comes in. Okay. That you're comfortable with the 15th, 30th salary, the bonuses, etc.
People are afraid to lose that security, right? When they go into business. Were you concerned about that, or were you more confident because you had your grandfather to look at and your mom was doing the sideline business?
I think the reference to my past came late.
Okay.
I think I was carried away by the norm. I would say the norm, the normal mindset of, finishing school, working for a good company, big company. I had great opportunities working particularly for Outback Steakhouse. I was at one time a director for Southeast Asia.
Wow. I was part of the Bistro Group back then.
Initially. And then it was sold to the mother company in the US, and that's when I came back.
I see. Okay.
I had 2 tours of duty for Outback. So when I came back, it was already being run by the US company, and I was assigned to handle several markets. So you'd imagine the perks and the comfort zone. Because you can travel, you're exposed, you're moving up the ladder. But one time, I think I was with my friends who co-founded Buffalo Wings and Things, and we had a conversation about retirement.
Okay.
Because when you're young, you don't even think about retirement.
Sure. Yeah.
Especially in the restaurant industry, we're trained
so fast.
and we're trained to to work hard, closing to opening, ending inventory, month-end inventory, and such. Right. So I think that in 2009, when we were conversing with my co-founders of Buffalo Wings and Things, the talk about retirement. Because you realize that in the restaurant industry, unlike in multinational companies or banks, you don't really have an institutionalized retirement policy or program.
Sure.
So personally,
you're quite young to think about retirement.
In 2009, right?
Yeah.
Because one of the problems in the industry is, of course, the wear and tear.
I see.
You work weekends, you work late nights, so
opening to closing.
I remember it fondly. I went home and tried to think about it seriously, and I said, I need to get out of my comfort zone, and I need to think of the future. And I guess I formulated the idea that the framework should be, gain experience for maybe 2 decades, which was the length of my experience at that time. And then eventually the graduation should be to become a resto negociante or a restaurant entrepreneur. So that's when it started. So I opened my mind when I was invited by my co-partners to start Buffalo's Wings and Things. I think that opened my mind because I just came also from a failed business. I started,
the catering.
Catering.
Yeah.
So I guess that's one lesson that I can share to the viewers, that failure actually, sharpens you.
Yeah. It can be instructive.
The grit.
Yeah.
To learn from the insights of the failure and continue on better.
All right.
And stronger.
We'll just have to take a quick break. Please stay tuned to Business and Politics. We're talking to Mr. Ramel Nang of Buffalo Wings and Things.
Exalt his name in all his glorious majesty and splendor. Join the entire kingdom nation in worshiping the Almighty Father in spirit and in truth. Feast on the freshest manna of revelations, delivered only by His audible voice, His appointed Son, Pastor Apollo C. Tibuloy, and be enlightened by the real message of deliverance. In a live global thanksgiving and worship presentation as Sunshine Media Network International broadcast Sounds of
There is no law
Worship.
against joy. There is no law against peace. There is no law against kindness and goodness and faith and long-suffering. There is no law against that.
This gathering of faithful sons and daughters is also streamed live on SMNI.com, ApolloKibuloy.com, and on KingdomofJesusChrist.org/livestream.
Because He loves me.
Also tune in to our SMNI affiliate stations nationwide.
Receive the blessings of enlightenment and salvation from the Almighty Father as you tune in only here on Sunshine Media Network International.
Kalimutan Festival, Sultan Kudarat. Mark your calendars. Join the fun.
We're inviting everyone to visit us in the province of Sultan Kudarat, especially for our Kalimutan Festival. Na ito po ay magaganap sa November 17 to November 22. We have prepared a lot of festivities and activities for everyone. Buhay po tayong lahat. At happy Kalimutan Festival, mga kababayan.
Welcome back to Business and Politics. We're talking to Mr. Ramel Nang. Can I just go back to your lolo for a minute, because you gave me a little detail there that reminded me of the thing that we were talking about before the program, which is really the nature of the business that makes it very difficult, which is you have to be in a location where there's a lot of traffic, and in the Philippines those are shopping malls, right? And yet the shopping malls, they have their own business model, and sometimes it makes it challenging for you. But it's interesting that your lolo had something similar. It wasn't a shopping mall, but he operated in a property that was not his, and it became difficult now for continuing that business. Can you talk about that? You were saying that symbiotic relationship. What is the nature of that business, for a restaurant owner? How is it going now? What can be better? What are the challenges?
In terms of perspective, I'm blessed to have seen the late 70s, the early 80s, 90s up to now, and I saw the evolution of how restaurants used to be freestanding.
Yeah.
And then in 86, of course, the super malls came in.
Yeah.
And you have to adapt.
Yeah.
And I think to your question, the answer would be, that the landlords would have to recognize the significant role that restaurants are playing in the lives of the Filipino people.
Yeah.
And it would really be great if restaurant owners would be understood from that perspective, how difficult it is and very challenging, especially now after the pandemic, to run a restaurant.
Yeah.
Even in the States, when they talk about restaurants, the first thing that they talk about in conferences, in articles, is the difference of restaurant businesses from other types of businesses in terms of margins, and how detailed and meticulous it needs to be operated.
I'm not an expert in business, but from what I understand, from the little that I've read, it's a business that you really have to pay it. That you have to be hands-on. Is that right? I mean,
yes,
because as you said, the margins are thin, and if you're not careful, it can easily run out of control, right? And that's why I was thinking, with this other factor now that it's beneficial for restaurants to be in malls, how does that expense now impact the already thin margins that you already operate in? And that should that be, how should people who want to go into business like you, how should they, sometimes that's something that they don't think about. They only think about, the quality of the food, maybe the service. They don't think about these other things like rent, right, and operating costs, right?
I think on the macro level, for in terms of framework that I can share with people, when you open up a restaurant business, and I would say to a certain degree it also applies to other businesses, you have to consider three things.
Okay.
Number one is the brand.
Okay.
The brand aspect of it. Nobody taught us that. Because we're restaurant operators basically.
Right.
And we didn't understand that when you put up a restaurant, it is actually a brand.
Right.
It has a brand name, all of these technical things that, they don't teach you when you're a restaurant operator. So it's how to get the skill and the competency to start up, promote, and sustain a brand.
Okay.
And then number two is, I think the most important aspect, that it will require leadership of people.
Okay.
That in the business, it's leading people and managing resources.
Okay.
You don't actually manage people, especially in the context of, the human behavior and all the other factors that come into employing people, right?
Sure.
And then lastly, it's managing the business.
Okay.
So if you translate it into the restaurant framework that I share with others, it's actually having a signature dish that would represent your brand, a signature experience that would also represent your brand. As you know, there are different sectors: QSR, fast casual, fun casual, polished casual, and then fine dining, and etc. Right? So it's understanding the business model that would work for you. So it needs to be a profitable and sustainable and scalable business model. That's where I think rent comes in. Understanding what the benefits are of opening outside the mall, opening inside the mall. And when you open inside the mall, it's very important for you to run at least a 5-year P&L or a 5-year income statement, not just a 1 to 2 to 3 year P&L.
That long, right?
Considering the escalation that would happen, the standard mall rate would be about 10% escalation starting on the second year. And then the basic rent plus percentage of rent that you have to remit to the malls.
Right.
All
so
of these
most
things,
people don't realize that when they go into the restaurant business. So it's not just the rent. For some, there's also a percentage of sales.
Yes.
Or is that standard?
Standard, yes, standard.
Or can you negotiate that? Or
well, it depends on your leverage. If you're a bigger brand,
I see.
Some would give like a straight percentage rent, but that's more of an exception than the rule.
I see.
The rule would be basic plus 5%.
Wow.
So all of these things you have to consider. In the Philippines, a lot of foreign investors would say the labor is relatively more affordable.
Okay.
But they don't consider they don't factor in the rent.
The rent,
It's the dynamics of the rent here in the Philippines.
And sometimes that's what kills the business, right?
Yes.
I mean, even though your restaurant's good and you don't factor it in, then you're surprised. But I'm surprised. 5-year income projected income statement. But from what I understand, again, correct me if I'm wrong. My impression was that many restaurant businesses don't even last that long because it's as you said, it's a tough business, right? Margins are thin. You have to be hands-on, and then there's so many other issues that you deal with. What can you do to make sure that you at least last that initial projection?
I think it's a circular thing. Like the reason why they don't last is because they didn't really project for the 5 year.
Yeah,
And
they didn't plan.
the number crunching, consider all the factors. When you go into the mall, it's of course beneficial because foot traffic is significantly different.
Yeah.
But you also have to consider your target market.
Yeah.
The limitation of the malls is that it closes at a certain time.
Right.
We noticed that especially now after the pandemic, a lot of people are going out later,
Right.
eating dinner later. And of course, the phenomenon of the BPOs and all the other,
Yes.
the gig economy,
Yeah.
all of the other different jobs that people take on. The traffic, of course, is a consideration in Metro Manila. So all of these factors should be put into consideration.
So if someone like me who wants to go into a restaurant business, what are maybe the top things that I would keep in mind? You mentioned the importance of planning, the concept of knowing your business, that it's actually a brand, right? Not more than something. But what else should I consider or think about if I want to go into it?
Yeah, I think the simplest way that I would put it, because it's the way I also look at it,
Sure.
is from the income statement standpoint.
Okay.
So top line is sales.
Okay.
So that's where branding comes in.
Right.
That's where marketing will come in. If you're not an expert in marketing, you should consider, enlisting the help or maybe even partnering with somebody who really knows marketing. Especially now, marketing is different.
Right.
I always recognize that I'm not the market of my restaurants
So
anymore.
it's not just
anymore.
It's not just good that I think I'm confident about my food. It's not enough, right?
It's a good starting point,
Yeah.
but you have to recognize the other moving parts, particularly the business aspect of it. After the sales, you'd have how do I, what sales would I be bringing in? You have to categorize it into dine-in sales, delivery sales. That's because that's going to be a factors that you would have to consider for choosing your location, right?
Sure.
And then number 2 would be food cost. That's the biggest cost factor in the Philippines, particularly compared to other markets. If you put together a menu, is the menu going to be easy to source? Supply chain is a big consideration in the Philippines, given the traffic, the cost of trucking, the cost of gasoline and diesel, right? And then after food cost, it's the labor cost.
Yeah, but you were saying that when you went into business, the thing that caught my attention was you saw an opportunity because you said the wings was not that valuable
at the time,
right? And of course now it's
it's prime cut.
It's prime cut now. But did you see that opportunity, and then you built a business around it, or there was some other sequence to how you got started?
I think the biggest, that was not the biggest factor, but that was one of the
because you're saying the retirement, the financial security was the initial thing, right?
Yeah, and also with regards to the concept of wings, we felt that it is still a segment that nobody has really focused on.
Okay.
We anticipated that there will be a focus on specialized cuisine.
Okay.
Because it used to be, when you talk about restaurants, American restaurant would have a very big menu, right?
Yeah.
Everything American. So we saw that the opportunity to open wing joints or smaller restaurants that would really be, and I think up to now that's one of our assets or our strengths, that we're able to operate a kitchen that is very small with a simple menu that's easy to put out. The food is easy to put out.
Yeah.
So it's fast serving time, as we would say, great food, ice cold beverages, fast serving time, service that connects, which leads into tangible value of experience. So even at that time, we were cognizant of the importance, being restaurant operators, of the importance of having your main product available year-round. And at that time, as you mentioned, it was one of the cheaper cuts of the chicken. So we built on that.
Yeah.
But of course, it evolved through the years.
Right. How do you prepare or incorporate innovation? Because since you've been in business since 2009, do you look at changing the menu or maybe adding some flavored wings? How important is that? Because you want people to keep coming back. You have probably some signature dishes, but also you're probably thinking that people get tired of the same thing after a while, right? So how do you plan for something like that?
Well, innovation is definitely part of it, but I think the precursor or the prerequisite, I would say, of innovation is actually listening to your customers.
Okay.
And listening to the customers of other restaurants as well.
Okay.
I think that's one big lesson that we learned early.
How do you do that? Do you talk to them, or you're actually there and you talk to customers, or you do a survey, or?
Yeah, being a restaurant manager myself for a long time, I knew the value of table visits, being in the restaurants,
interacting with the
training your frontliners to get feedback, and you know what we call in the Buffalo Wings and things, not being transactional, but more of building positive relationships. It differentiates you from the transactional nature of a fast food restaurant, for example. And more importantly, I think it's also doing committing time, being disciplined about doing research, not only about the restaurant industry in the Philippines, but also abroad. What's happening, what are the trends, knowing which countries are actually pioneering. Used to be America, but now it's different. The trends are in Asia.
Interesting.
The trends are in Asia now.
Interesting.
So you would see a lot more Asian restaurants being brought to the Philippines, and Philippine restaurants being brought to the US.
Yeah.
So it's the other way around now because the technology has been transferred, and given the advanced culinary taste of the Filipinos, our palates are more advanced. We're used to more complex flavors.
Yeah.
So I think the world is realizing now that the Southeast Asia in particular is a very attractive region rather to get culinary ideas from.
And just like, we have to take a quick break, but let me just ask you very quickly, because I just got back from the UAE and I saw Jollibee there and Pancake House and other Filipino brand restaurants. Are you looking to expand abroad?
Yes, definitely.
Right, okay. We'll be right back with Business and Politics. We're talking to Mr. Romel now.
Sa unang balita, patay ang 11 miyembro ng teroristang grupong CPP-NPA-NDF nang makaengkwentro na mga ito ang tropa ng Philippine Army at nagresulta ng pagkasawi ng Vice Platoon Commander at Political Officer na si Evarina de la Peña alias Ka Eva. Sa kasalukuyan ay patuloy pang inaalam ng mga otoridad ang pagkakakilanlan ng iba pang mga nasawi. Nag-uulat Patrick Lance Castro.
Palamig ang simoy ng hangin, kay saya ng bawat damdamin. Mayroong siglang wala ang kalungkutan. Himig ng Pasko'y umiral sa loob ng bawat tahanan.
Welcome back to Business of Politics. We're talking to Mr. Romelan, the president and founder of Buffalo's Wings and Things. So it's interesting, you had the foreign name, but it's actually a wholly created Filipino brand. But let me take a step back, because you said that, that's not your first business. You had a catering enterprise before that, which failed, but we're talking about that's not such a bad thing, because you can learn something. What did you get out of it? And tell us about that business. How long did it run? And then maybe how it failed and what you learned from it.
I think the main lesson from me, which I carry up to now, is going into business for the right reasons.
Okay.
And also that's why I think the advocacy of the Resto Coach was born out of that lesson also, that you have to go into business prepared.
Okay.
So it's not, a knee-jerk reaction to life situation.
Okay.
Because the first business happened when I got burned out. Working so long in the industry. I think at that time I was already working for close to 2 decades in the industry. And
were you married already? You have kids?
Yes.
You have young kids? Sometimes can be difficult.
Yeah, very difficult.
The family time and the demands of the business.
Working during holidays, etc. So I think it was more burnout than anything else. And I went into the business not really prepared to go into that business. The typical... hawak mo ang oras mo.
Yeah.
Yes, you're thinking that if you go into business, you won't be a
That's the appeal, pero they don't know hawak ka nila.
And thinking of it now, mas masaya ako ngayon because right now I don't even think of time, because I went into business and entrepreneurship with the right purpose and reason. I think I have a framework. From purpose, vision, strategy. It's all more organized now, learning from my first foray into business, and I failed terribly.
So what's a big lesson you think that helps you now with your present business? What's the lesson from the catering business that helps you now?
Clarity.
Okay.
I think I'm sharing with a lot of people now, my colleagues, my employees, my even business partners and franchise partners, that I subscribe to a framework which I developed with the help of a lot of co-workers before. It's what I call purpose to results.
Okay.
So it's clarifying your purpose, your vision for the business, your strategy, your plans.
Sure.
Brand, business, people plan, it needs to be complete. And then the systems.
Okay.
Before you go into action and expect results. So it's having the discipline to go through that 5 processes and clarifying it, writing it down. If you're more of a techie person, putting it into the laptop, but it's something visual for you to validate every decision that you make. Is it aligned with the purpose or my why?
Yeah.
Is it in the right direction or my where? Where am I going? It's the vision, right? And then strategy.
But did I hear you right that you had other friends? Did they also go into Buffalo's Wings and Things with you, or did you get help maybe from them or from your wife, or how did it go, or did you just all yourself?
We were 4 co-founders of Buffalo's
Were
Wings
you
and
friends
Things.
or
friends and all from the industry, former colleagues, former.
Now that's something interesting, because I'm often told that never go into business with your friends, because sometimes that can the business can ruin the friendship. But how do you balance that
I think we were more professional colleagues than friends.
I see. So that helped.
Yeah, because we all came from the American casual dining industry.
Okay.
And we had the same context. But I think that's one lesson also, that sometimes if you go into business with people who have the same skill set, it would be redundant.
I see.
Good for us that
you need something complementary.
Yes.
Okay.
So for us, it's good that we had personalities which we understood each other, maybe from the significant time that we spent with each other, and we assigned roles.
I see.
Even from the beginning in 2009, everyone knew that what their role is going to be. Another lesson that is valuable is that do not accept partners who are just who don't bring value to the table aside from money. If it's just money that they bring in, it's just money that they will expect from the business. So they need to put in other forms of skin in the game aside from capital.
Right. How do you deal with the bureaucracy? Because I hear that that's something, or that's a challenge that also aspiring entrepreneurs also discover that they have to deal with. Sometimes they don't anticipate, the number of forms, the permits, and the difficulties in securing those, in maybe just getting the business started. What was your experience, and what can you maybe share with others?
From the time that we started in 2009 up to now, it has improved a lot.
Okay.
With the LGUs putting emphasis on efficiency and different LGUs.
Okay.
Even the BIR, I would say it has improved a lot in terms of maybe the computerization of it, the digital, tools. But it's still a challenge, and I think those who want to go into the business should bear in mind that it's always beneficial to go into the business the right way.
Right. Is that important, maybe to pick a location in an LGU that has a one-stop shop, or it doesn't really matter? I mean, is there a danger in going to a city that it takes much longer to get the permit, say, compared to, say, something like Quezon City has a good reputation and in the speed that it processes those permits?
Well,
is that a factor?
Yeah, it's part of the consideration, especially if you have number of restaurants already.
Yeah.
Aside from, of course, the location being prime and being attractive to,
how easy it is to deal with the local government.
You have to consider the taxes, the tax rates.
Yeah.
How much tax you have to pay for the certain LGU, and also as you've said, how organized the LGU is in terms of giving out permits, and all of those things translate into store days. If, for example, you construct a new store, and then the process of during the process of the construction, it's difficult to get permits, and then after the construction, it's also difficult to get other permits. Then it would result to lost sales opportunities, and of course, people.
In the meantime, you're paying salary. You probably have some inventory already.
And if you're not really diligent, you might even start paying rent. If you're not paying attention to the commencement rate of the lease. So all of these things you have to consider.
Wow. So are there, let's not mention the cities that are difficult to do business in. Are there cities that do it better than others, because you have almost 30 stores now, you said? And you've done business in the region, as from your previous working experience. Are there cities that do it better than others, that you would consider doing business first over other cities?
Well, from our experience, I think citing a few would be Mandaluyong, Pasig. That's why our home office is also in Mandaluyong. And I would say this because of the number of businesses that they deal with. Valenzuela is known to be,
so these are the more efficient, business-friendly. I see. Interesting.
To name a few, yeah.
Is there something else a government could do, maybe national level or maybe the local level, that would be helpful to people like you? Or when you're thinking back, it would have been nice to have this support or this policy or this program from government that would have been. Is there something that can be done that our government officials should look at so they encourage more entrepreneurs like you?
Yeah, I think my personal bias would be, number one, to start with the grassroots, meaning education.
Okay.
Because even if you want to help entrepreneurs and if they're not equipped, the help would just go to waste.
Okay.
So I think it needs to start with at the fundamental level of education.
Knowledge, yeah.
In terms of formal education and options outside of formal education.
Yeah.
In terms of getting people to an exposure to what it entails. I think your questions are on point from a layman's standpoint in terms of the restaurant business, a non-operator. Those are the questions that they need to be asking.
Yeah.
What are the big cost areas? What are, how do I generate sales?
Yeah.
What are the things that I need to consider? And these are things that need to be discussed. I think it can be integrated. If you notice, aside from human hotel and restaurant management and culinary courses, there's a lack of particular courses pertaining to restaurant businesses in the formal education or the academe.
Yeah.
I think I've talked to some culinary school administrators about it.
Okay.
That you need to reinforce the culinary aspect of it with the business aspect of it.
Yeah.
But different from something too lengthy or tedious as taking up business management, a 4-year course, or economics, or other courses.
Journalism.
Right? Journalism before going into the restaurant business. I think it needs to be recognized that, as you mentioned in your intro, the restaurant industry is actually big. It's huge.
Yeah.
If you look at the mall, almost 30% to 35% of it is restaurants. In terms of the number of, just the quantity of restaurants inside.
Yeah.
Aside from wellness, restaurants are they're two of the biggest players inside the malls already.
Yeah.
So, and a lot in terms of employment, the restaurant industry employs a lot of Filipinos who are from anywhere from working students to middle management to even executives. So I think there needs to be more review and analysis of how to educate, to provide options for education for Filipinos who are interested to go into that field, so that they don't get more journalists like me.
Now, what are the opportunities that you see in trying to export your brand abroad? Is it the number of Filipinos working abroad, or is it like you're confident about your system and you can compare it with what you saw in your professional experience that it can compete, or is it something else? What's pushing you to consider that possibility of going out?
I think you provided the answer already. It's a system.
Okay.
It's a system that can adapt to the different realities of different
That's
countries.
the opposite of what I would think, but that's very interesting, because I would think Filipino market, but you're looking beyond that apparently.
The reality is, if you just focus on the Filipino market,
You're not going to survive.
Even Jollibee recognized that.
Yeah.
I was actually part of the first batch of Jollibee employees. We were supposed to be deployed somewhere else the 1990s. I was supposed to go to Jollibee Vietnam, but I backed out when my daughter was born.
Oh, okay.
So I requested to be redeployed locally, but it took long for Jollibee to really be successful abroad, because I think that's what you said exactly. You have to recognize that it needs to be a bigger market.
That's it. Think about a mainstream market.
Yeah, mainstream market.
All right. Ro, we'll just have to take a quick break. Please stay tuned. You're watching Business and Politics. We'll be right back.
Hey, we're glad you found SMNI News. If you subscribe to TV programs that help build the nation, then we got you covered. Watch your favorite TV shows through GSAT TV Channel 40, Signal TV Channel 186. And if you are a Sky Cable subscriber, you can watch SMNI in National Capital Region, Sky Cable Channel 162, Cebu, Sky Cable Channel 37, Davao City, Sky Cable Channel 14, 43, and 46, General Santos City, Sky Cable Channel 37, Zamboanga, Sky Cable Channel 53, Bacolod, Sky Cable Channel 37, Iloilo, Sky Cable Channel 36, Dumaguete, Sky Cable Channel 37, Baguio, Sky Cable Channel 14, and Lawag, Sky Cable Channel 10. You may also watch SMNI on digital TV in Davao City and Manila, and also in TV Plus and GMA Afford a Box, and over 500 cable TV affiliates nationwide. Watch SMNI on digital channels in Mega Manila, Channel 39 and 43. We are also on analog TV in Lawag, Channel 35, Isabela, Channel 37, Vegan, Channel 38, Rojas, Channel 39, Butuan, Channel 39, and Davao, Channel 43. If you're on your mobile phone, download SMNI app or visit smni.com to get the latest news, updates, and more. Also, browse through the day's top stories and receive notifications for breaking news. Watch us live on our official Facebook and Rumble accounts, and you can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, so you don't miss out on our extra minute segments. Wherever you decide to watch, we're glad you choose SM9 News, the home of nation builders who bravely bring truth that matters.
Welcome back to Business and Politics. We're talking to Mr. Romel Lang. What are the opportunities and challenges you see? And let's start with the opportunities, because people have to eat. It's a very enticing business to go into. But from your experience, with your background, what's catching your eye?
Well, for our brand, I think it's more of the Visayas region and more expansion in Mindanao. When we stopped our expansion during the pandemic time, we were already going into that path, right? And then Southeast Asia, as I mentioned earlier.
Any particular country in Southeast Asia? Or?
Well, for us, what would really be aligned with our vision for the brand in terms of flavors, in terms of the similarities of the market, would be Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand.
Interesting.
Those are the top 3 countries that would be of interest in terms of demographics, economic growth, and in terms of the opportunities for Filipino brands to really go there.
Sure.
Some markets are really more advanced than the Philippines, but it's very interesting also to look into. Like Taiwan, I always look at Taiwan and Korea for trends and other benchmarks. For the malls, particularly Thailand is very interesting.
That's really interesting that Philippine homegrown brands are going international. What do you need? Do you need government help? Do you need foreign investors? Do you need something else? What will it take for you to go ahead and push through with something like that?
I can only speak from my personal experience, because most of my trips abroad are either sponsored by the company who I worked for before, or personally funded, because I really invest in continuing to learn about the industry globally.
You're doing your own market
but
survey.
I've seen a lot of government-initiated conferences locally. I think if restaurant entrepreneurs would be given the opportunity to be part of a trade visit to other countries, and it would be recognized that the restaurant segment in the Philippines is something that could attract and also export, import and export its talents, its brands,
systems,
expertise, systems. We're very much known for how Filipinos can easily learn the technology. We're moving into an AI and robotic period. So I think if our government agencies can help the Filipino restaurant operators to be more equipped in terms of how these trends would affect the industry, and how it would also prevent job loss, because the most prone area would be the kitchen. If you're going to replace equipments with robotics, in the US, I've seen the kitchens without cooks.
Oh wow!
Already,
really?
And servers, people ordering digitally even when dining. So I think all of these things need to be provided for in terms of just access and opportunities for learning, as I've said earlier.
So right now, I take it you're not invited. Is there like an organized mission by maybe DTI or some other government? Do they go to your group and say, we're going to say Taiwan or Japan or maybe Middle East? They don't have that yet, or
not as institutionalized as needed
so
by the industry.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not proportionate to the size of the industry.
I see. I get what you mean.
And its contribution to the economy, I would say.
You mentioned Indonesia as one of the markets that you're looking at. I heard that halal offers a lot of opportunities as well, $1 billion opportunity. Is that something, because chicken, halal, is that something that you're looking at?
I think that's one of the reasons why, one of our earliest business development plan was Zamboanga. because we wanted to cater to the market of our Muslim brothers also, and to get a gauge of the dynamics that might be happening in Indonesia and Malaysia.
So test that out in Zamboanga.
So if you succeed in Zamboanga, then
you're more confident.
You're more familiar. You're more confident to enter the other Muslim markets.
Can I ask you about something in the news lately? You know, the food waste has become one of the issues. I think Phil Rice came out with a statement last week that there's a lot of food waste in the restaurants. People leave maybe an average of 2 spoonfuls of rice per serving, and it doesn't sound much, but if they total it in a year, it comes out to something like 385 metric tons of wasted rice, right? I know you focus mainly on chicken, but is that a concern? Is that something that you guys think about? Maybe if not terms of the social impact, but maybe on the impact of your bottom line. Is there a solution for it, you think? What do you think?
Well, I totally agree that the impact of food waste is not just in terms of the economics of the restaurant, but more so because some restaurants would just pass it on to the consumers.
Yeah, that's right.
Pricing, I think it's also we have to look into or to just give some thought about all the concepts that do unlimited.
Only rice.
Eat all you can.
Yeah. Do you think there should be some maybe regulation on that?
It cannot be. It should not be regulated.
Should not
but
be.
I think it should be the mindfulness of the operator to consider that the supply is not really endless. It's limited.
Is there something that can be done for maybe public, maybe on the consumer side?
Yes.
Maybe a change of mindset, for.
Well, a lot of it can be from the operator side.
Also,
because, as I mentioned earlier, cross-utilization, even in the US, they're doing it now in the Western countries, because they're now cognizant of the fact that you just don't throw away anything in the garbage can.
This is money, right?
Yeah, let's say, for example, produce.
Yeah.
Back in the day, you just throw away the leaves of the celery and you just choose the prime parts of the celery. Now they understand.
They use everything.
To use everything for soup. To use cross-utilization.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the important aspects that culinary schools can help in terms of educating the chefs and all the culinary practitioners to have that in mind.
Yeah.
The bigger suppliers are also working on that. I've heard Unilever talk about that in one of the bigger conferences.
Sure.
So the whole industry, not just here in the Philippines, is talking about it. But in terms of the consumers, I totally agree with you. It needs to be an awareness program because you cannot force people to stop eating only or to stop patronizing restaurants which they feel have value.
Right.
So,
it's a come on, right? I mean, it's been an effective come on, but. What is? Can you maybe clue me in on some of the discussions among restaurant owners about the food waste problem? Is that something that's talked about a lot, or maybe just on the fringe, or because our discussion has been survival of the business, right? Is that a big cost, or is there maybe some other program that you guys have been talking about?
Yeah, the pandemic has definitely put a spotlight on it.
I see.
Because during the pandemic, the reality was you realize that what was very available in the past, 2019 and earlier, is not readily available when a pandemic hits, right?
Because of supply chain problem.
There's a heightened awareness of the importance of knowing that supply chain should not be treated as an endless supply of things, an endless availability of different things. So culinarily, a lot of restaurants adjusted their menus, made it more compact. Because if you put out a big menu, even if you don't sell a lot of the other items, you still have to prep it.
Yeah,
and
you have to keep the inventory.
Yeah, that's where the wastage comes in.
I see.
Even before it's cooked. So I would say that it has improved in terms of awareness, and a lot of people are doing something about it in the industry already.
What are other issues that you guys are talking about? I mean, in terms of opportunities and challenges, is Christmas something you look forward to, and then what does 2024 look to you?
For this year, a lot of people, I'm sure, are really looking forward to Christmas because 2023 has been very challenging. Q1, Q2, we thought that it was.
You were saying something. It's worse now than 2021 or 2023.
Yeah, in a lot of ways.
Okay.
Yeah, in a lot of ways.
That's odd. Yeah.
Because the latter part of 2022, the rent was, brought back to normal.
I see. Okay.
And then inflation came in, and of course it affected. Factored in also is the, what aggravated it was the global demand escalated, so supply was affected as well.
Yeah.
In our case, poultry supply.
I was going to ask you about that because is localization something that you look at? Because for your particular restaurant, you import your chicken, right? Because we're talking about the dynamics of the chicken suppliers here in the country. They have to prep it for you because you serve wings. Whereas if they sell to, let's say, people like me, we buy the whole chicken and we prepare it at home, and right,
and most of the time you get it chilled. No
Yes.
need for them to freeze. No need for them to cut it up. So.
But localization, is that something you guys think about, or what do you think about
I think that's something that, going back to your earlier question, I think that's where government can also step in and provide support for the local poultry industry. Aside from the poultry industry, making sure that the other processes leading towards being consumed in the restaurant. Because during the pandemic, I highlighted it in one of my conversations in our organization and even during webinars that during the pandemic, we saw the bigger role of the restaurants in terms of not just being a business, but also as a essential social institution.
Sure.
Providing convenience, helping people, giving people access to our convenient way, especially now that people are not too keen on cooking on their own.
It's not just a luxury, right?
It's
sometimes essential. Yeah.
So, having said that, I think that the support of the government can come into providing more supply for basic, especially for protein.
Yeah.
Because if you think of it, we don't have a beef industry or a cattle industry that can provide us the beef, right? It's almost all imported.
Yeah.
So, and then you have a pork supply now that's have been troubled for the past few years because of the swine flu.
Fever, yeah.
So that puts a lot of pressure in the poultry sector.
Yeah.
So maybe a review on the laws also in terms of the trade agreements. Some countries are not allowed to export chicken to the Philippines. And I think those old laws can be reviewed now, especially with the ASEAN integration. Because we know in the ASEAN region there's a lot of supply of chicken, but we don't have access to that. So
sure.
Maybe it's an updating of the trade agreements and the laws so that we can really support the restaurants, which I think even during the pandemic and up to now, we still grow by numbers in terms of the number of restaurants being opened every year.
Right. And you know this, but I want to hear you say it. But why is that support important? I'd say maybe how many people did you employ when you started, and how many do you have now? Maybe that's one way to gauge the importance, right? But
for us, it was a more creative. Just for context, our restaurants are typically smaller. Because when the landlords were inviting us to the malls, that's one of the things that we were afraid of, the rent. So we adjusted our model to a smaller one. So a small restaurant like ours, which is a fun casual restaurant, full service but not casual dining.
I see.
It employs 9 to 12 people.
Okay.
So if you have,
average,
in our case, if you have 50 branches, 40 branches, it multiplies, right?
Times 9 to 12.
And also the entrepreneurial opportunities that you share with your franchisees.
Right. And then, of course, you support, your suppliers.
And landlords.
Well, Romel, it's been very interesting to talk to you. A lot of things I've learned this episode. Thank you for your time. But before we go, maybe you'd like to leave our audience with a message?
Well, for me, number one, thank you very much to you, sir, for inviting me over. SMNI, salamat po. And I always appreciate a platform where we can talk about the industry so people can understand and appreciate the industry in itself and how it impacts the economy and how it serves the people. I'm blessed to have been, part of the industry for almost 40 years now. And all of these learnings, experiences, I share every Tuesday The Resto Coach on Facebook every Tuesday night, 8:30 to 9:30. As I always, encourage people to, if you're really serious into going into business, there's no harm in listening to something, even if you don't want to look at my face and just listen to it.
And it's free.
While eating, while doing something else, or in the car. It's on Facebook. It's also on YouTube, The Resto Coach. And please visit our restaurants and other restaurants for that matter. We really need your dine-in support. Delivery is fine, but it's not as profitable. Sorry, Grab and Food Panda, my partners for delivery, but that's the reality. So we invite you to dine in. The restaurants need your help up to now. Some people would think it's, post-pandemic, but restaurants still need our help.
We should give you support so that you can create more jobs. Romel, thank you very much for your time. I'd like to thank our viewers watching this program and watching the replay. I'd like to thank Pastor Apollo Kibuloy for making this program possible. This has been Business and Politics. I'm Dante Klink, and I will see you next week.
Sa mga tahanay tumatanglaw. Gayon pa man tuwing Pasko, kami laging kasama mo.
Dugay pag-ibig ng Diyos saan ka man sa mundo. May pagpapala ngayong Pasko, ang pag-ibig ng Diyos ay tanggapin mo.
May pag-asang natatamo dahil pag-ibig ang siyang naghahari sa ating mga puso.
Lamig ng simoy ng hangin, naghahatid ng isang awitin. Ngayong Pasko ay magniningning, may dugo sa bawat dalangin. Nagpapapala ngayong Pasko, ang pag-ibig ng Diyos ay tanggapin mo. Paglilingkod sa kapwa at kapilingayan, ang ating pipanaig sa sanlibutan. Learn to give and care for others this Christmas. Share and give the love. L-O-V-E love. Share and give the love. L-O-V-E love. Give the love. L-O-V-E love. L-O-V-E share and give the love.
We gotta give and share in love, and yes, our blessings from above. Treat each other as family, hey, to the community. For every laugh we touch, there are wounds we patch. Here with no strings attached, time to share a gift of love.
Itigil na ang mga digmaan, itigil na ang mga hidwaan. Tanggalin ang galit at hukot sa puso, itaguyod ang kapayapaan. Share love, share peace, share joy, sa ating kapwa ay pagpatuloy. This world will become a better place if we double our goodness instead of hate, yeah.
Sa kabila ng ating mga pinagdaanan, serbisyo sa kapwa at sa katotohanan, nananatili sa ating puso magpakailanman. May pagpapala ngayong Pasko, ang pag-ibig ng Diyos ay tanggapin mo. Paglilingkod
Subscribe to SMNI News Channel and turn on the notification bell to keep you up to date. Also visit our official social media accounts and join our community on Viber and Telegram.